Hello, welcome to my session. Today we'll be discussing Act 3 of The Birthday Party by Harold Pinter. As you can see, Act 3 of The Birthday Party. My pen isn't working well. The birthday party. Okay. Well, let me tell you in brief what happens in Act 3. Well, in the last act, I mean in Act 2, we saw that, Stanley had a nervous breakdown, so he was taken to upstairs. Now, Act 3 begins with Petty in the living room. He is, reading a newspaper at the table, and we see that, Stanley's transformation is complete in this act, and he is now only an image of a broken man, complained, and is no longer able to speak. And well, the next morning when Petty sits at the living room, in the living room at the dining table, we see him reading a newspaper, and then we see that Meg is complaining about having no breakfast because the guests have finished all the cornflakes breakfast. By the guests, Meg refers to visitors, Goldberg and McCann. So her memory here, we see a kind of hazy from the night before, and she forgets that Petty was not there in the birthday party last night, so she couldn't exactly remember whether Petty was present in the party last night or not. And when she leaves to shop, she sees Goldberg's, she was going to shop to buy something, and when she was going out to shop, heading towards shop, she notices Goldberg's car in the driveway, and she, grows, kind of frightened, and later on we see that Petty calms her down. And then we see as Meg prepares to leave, again, Goldberg enters the room, living room, where Petty was, reading the newspaper. And now we see that Goldberg sits at the table. Meg asks Goldberg about the car, but he ignores her. He ignores, her inquiry about the car. She doesn't, he doesn't really want her to know the cause, why the car is here, whether the car is here to take, Stanley away or not. She finally, having no response, about her inquiry regarding the car, she leaves for shop, and, Petty asks Goldberg about Stanley, and Goldberg explains that he has suffered a nervous breakdown. This is when we only come to know about his breakdown, which Stanley suffered out of the continuous interrogation by McCann and Goldberg. And Goldberg also says that Stanley needs to be taken to a doctor. he refers to a doctor who he knows. However, Petty offers to, see to bring a doctor, and he also offers to see Stanley when he wakes. But we see that when Petty is insisting, seeing Goldberg, Stanley after he wakes up, Goldberg, in fact, insists Petty that he should go to work, he should leave the house for work. And then we see that another character on stage, Lulu, enters, and McCann leaves them alone. And then when Lulu enters the room, McCann leaves the room. He leaves the room to bring Stanley. And here we see that Lulu accuses Goldberg of having taken sexual advantage of her. She accuses of physical harassment, and then Goldberg and Lulu engage in a light argument over blame, and then we see that McCann enters. And McCann tells, when McCann enters, we see that McCann tells Lulu to confess her sin. His insistence in telling Lulu to confess her sin is kind of absurd and bizarre, because Lulu is accusing Goldberg of something wrong, whereas McCann is indicating the accusation against Lulu. And then McCann then leaves. He finally leaves the room to bring Stanley, and McCann enters. Again, we see McCann enters the living room with 2 suitcases. He comes in the room and he tells Goldberg that Stanley is trying to fit his broken glasses, which were broken in the last night's fight. And when Petty suggests, Petty is still there, when Petty suggests to a way out to fix the glasses, and he also offers to bring a doctor for Stanley, but we see Goldberg denies his offer. So then it is only when we see that Petty leaves for work, and insisting that he also tells Goldberg to tell him when Stanley wakes up. And McCann then demands, McCann is doing a very hasty action. He demands that they should be quick in their action, but Goldberg ignores him. Angry McCann shakes Goldberg's. Then there is interesting incident between McCann and Goldberg. We see that McCann is angry. He shakes Goldberg's chair, and he instantly calls Goldberg Simi. And when Goldberg hears this name Simi, he becomes kind of uncontrolled, and it causes actually his wrath and rage. But McCann tries to. He becomes very angry. Goldberg becomes very angry when he hears the name Simi. He hears McCann call him Simi. But however, McCann tries to pacify him, I mean Goldberg. Then we, come to know from Goldberg's, words that he feels kind of poorly, and he's confused by the feeling of the word of the name Simi. He tells McCann about his father and about his own principles of family, and he finally, as you watch the movie, you see that he finally makes, and you read the text, you see that he finally makes a strange request to McCann by asking to blow into his mouth twice. He opens his mouth and he asks McCann to blow into his mouth. So accordingly, McCann does so without questioning, and Goldberg seems to be calm and quiet. He just open his mouth like and then Goldberg McCann blows like this. It's very interesting scene. We'll see later on in the film. And then when Stanley is finally brought downstairs, we see him dressed in a suited and booted, and he has a bowler hat. Goldberg and McCann begin another sequence of absurd statements regarding Stanley's situation, and by the time they finish, Stanley can respond only in unintelligible noises. So Stanley here we see cannot speak. He does not utter any intelligible words. He is not uttering any words, or is not engaging himself in any conversation. What he does in response to the questions asked to him is he just makes some noises like okay, and you will see. And the two men then seem to take a kind of pity on Stanley and Goldberg, as we have already known that Stanley's glasses have been broken. So here we also see that Goldberg promises to buy him new glasses. It's so ironical because the glasses have been broken because of them. So now they are giving promises to buy new glasses for Stanley. And here we also see a kind of repeat of what had happened last night. That was kind of aggressive, and Stanley was bombarded with interrogation, questions after questions, without allowing Stanley to utter even a single word. It repeats here, but in a mild and gentler way. They are asking questions to Stanley in a milder way, and Goldberg asks Stanley if he wants to leave with them, but Stanley can only make some noise. He cannot utter any words, so he is not responding to Goldberg's proposal. And they begin to exit, and then we see that they begin to exit with Stanley well dressed, but Petty at that time, when they are leaving the living room, okay, they are going outside, we see Petty to arrive, and Petty tells them to stop taking Stanley from this house, but Goldberg does not listen to Petty. Mechanically, Goldberg and McCann ask Petty, if he wants to accompany them, Petty allows them to, finally Petty allows them to take Stanley away. But before we see in the, in this particular, point, before they leave, Petty cries out. He, says, quote unquote, okay, let me tell you, says, quote unquote, okay, Stan, don't let them tell you what to do. Stan, don't let them tell you what to do. And then we see that, Petty tries to stop them from taking Stanley, but Goldberg, as we have already talked about, Goldberg says that he's, taking him to Monty, who he knows. And we see that then Petty sits at the table, and then Meg arrives from the shop. When Meg arrives, she does not know anything about what had, happened. So she asks Petty to know about Stanley. She was expecting if Stanley was still sleeping, and Petty said yes. Petty, in fact, tells lies here in response to Meg's query about Stanley. And we see that, and then we see as Goldberg and McCann take away Stanley, and Petty comes in, wants to know about Stanley, what is he doing here at this point. Meg wants to know about Stanley at this point. Petty tells lies. I mean, he says that he's still sleeping. So we see that Meg is reflecting on the birthday party last night. She is recollecting the memories, the appreciation she had received last night. She was the center, ball of the eyes in the birthday party, and then the play ends. And that's all about the last act, or act 3 of the birthday party. And in our last session, we'll be talking about our next play, Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. And until then, thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.